Welcome to Academy Live. I am so excited about my one on one with Rob Hurd, Senior Executive Coach here in Pax8 Academy. He had one of the most standout breakout sessions of Beyond 2025 in Denver. It was so well attended. We had people out into the hallway. So today we're going to cover a lot of really cool ways that we can get started with AI, talk about some data integrity, and talk about what we can do to get started implementing these efficiencies in our own business. So without further ado, I would love to welcome on Rob. Rob Hurd. Good sir. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Amanda.
Oh, I'm so happy you came today. We were able to come up with some really cool clips. I want to dive right in since we have a lot to cover. So, this first clip really looks at how do we prepare for AI? So, before I start badgering you with all kinds of questions, let's hop over to the clip.
How many of you are currently auditing your data? All right, small set, but that's okay. I want you to all know that nothing has changed when we layer in AI. Garbage in is going to give you garbage out. Give you an analogy. Imagine when you were in school, you studied from a set of exams that all had completed answers, but you didn't know which answer was right or wrong. How do you think you would do when you went to go write the exam when you had no idea which was the right answer? AI is going to supercharge your ability to comb through years of ticket information, but you have the potential of feeding it the wrong information on the exam. So for those of you who are not auditing data, here's some points with regards to what we feel is some of the most critical pieces of information to start you down your AI journey. First, estimated hours. We're trying to get a baseline on how long we actually take versus how long we want something to take. You also then have the ability to start seeing which of your engineers can do tasks better and more efficiently, and potentially get that knowledge out of them. There is a chance that your engineers are doing things off script and doing it better than your current documentation. And that's going to come out in that data. Ticket classification, type, subtype item, issue type, sub-issue type, ticket categorization, whatever your PSA calls it. This is what are we doing? Well, why is this important? Well, we start being able to identify the trends on ticket concentration. What are the most common types of things that our team is working on? Configurations, assets, devices, very similar to ticket categorization. This is then being able to see that concentration. What are the noisy workstations? What are the network switches that we have to deal with? And what are the WAPs that are constantly dropping connections? Time entry. If any of you have been to a Pax8 Academy coached session, you know about our all the time, in real time, every time. Without those ticket notes, AI is not going to understand the story. And depending on how you configure it, you're going to have the dangerous part of having it hallucinate what happened through the story and the life of the ticket. And lastly is flagging our resolution. What was the actual final step to resolve that problem?
Yeah, there's a reason why garbage in, garbage out is like my favorite cliche. It's definitely one that we sometimes overuse, but I'm curious, Rob, tell me, why do MSPs often struggle with this data accuracy? What is it about being an MSP that creates this problem, not just for AI, but for anything data driven in what we do?
Question, Amanda. One of the biggest problems that MSPs are going to run into is the volume of data, right? So as you can imagine, we deal with hundreds of clients and a multitude of that in our end users.
And so every single ticket, if we don't have a solid way of being able to audit that data, it's just going to explode, right? And so dealing with that data quality is one of those things that just it doesn't scale properly. And so if we can put in controls and validation, it's going to help us get that core data set that, as we're going to talk about, AI needs to be able to learn on.
I really love the school exam analogy. You know, how do you walk into a test then not knowing if you're studying the right thing? So when we're talking about this analogy, how do we know what we should prioritize? There's a lot of cleanup to be done. You mentioned problems of scale. So what is it that we should focus on first? I heard a couple of examples on the tape, but I'm wondering if day one, what do we go in there and clean up?
Yeah. So the slide that we covered really helps us identify what I identified as kind of the easier or the more common data points that we can really live inside the ticket. It doesn't really matter what your PSA system is behind the scenes. Most of the PSA systems should be able to capture that data. We want to be able to do is start small, right? I don't want this to be a situation where we're stuck doing 6 months to a year worth of quality data before we can start bolting on AI.
Yeah. You created a cool reference. I think we're going to put it in the show notes here. Maybe we can bring that up. It was how to start thinking about that good data. So you can see a couple of things that you mentioned here. I'm just curious, how do people figure out if it's wrong instead of just incomplete? Sometimes just seeing the holes is very easy, but how do you start validating whether those things are correct?
Sure. So some of the coaches will walk you through when you engage with the academy and our operational coaching, we talk through a ticket closing process. And so what we're doing is we're breaking the ticket down and outside of the engineers. The engineers are the ones um, writing the story, and then we have our editors who are then proofing the story. And so getting somebody like a service manager to be able to vet that ticket, they're going to be the ones to be able to look at these 5 points on an individual ticket basis and be able to know, is it truth or is it fiction?
I love that. That QC, that necessary guardrail that you put into place. AI is not going to tell you whether the story you're telling is a good one. So I think that's a really cool way to bring in some of this accountability and spread it out over the organization. It's not just one person's responsibility to have good data, right? It's kind of everybody's. Starts every part of the process. So I would love to move on. Let's talk a little bit about that importance of oversight. So I know our next clip has to do with how you put up those guardrails, how you make sure as you're implementing these efficiencies of AI that you're doing it the right way. You're not creating either that hallucination, right? That data is actually correct, that story is correct,
Yeah.
or you're not missing something really important and having an incomplete picture. So let's roll that clip.
So once you get to the point of deploying AI, and one of the things I want to call out on this slide, this is not for AI solutions. So for those of you who have looked at bolting in pre-configured solutions from, for example, your PSA vendor, this is not what I'm looking at this point. How many of you know the term synthetic data? Some. All right. Synthetic data is AI-generated data. If the data that you have historically is not trusted, you may look at building a learning set of data, a training set that is generated by AI. It's a starting point. The problem is it doesn't have the nuances of your own organization. But again, it's a starting point. If you know that you've audited your data and you can trust it, then you're feeding that in as an ingestion point. One of the examples that I had was I had a partner feed horrible data into an AI model, and they asked, with regards to this ticket type, what is the best resolution? And AI spit back, the best resolution is, he fixed the problem. So there's your real life example of bad data. So as we roll out data and we roll out AI, we need to train it. And then what's phase two? Phase two is allowing AI to make recommendations, but we're the ones who are validating it. Okay? We think about this like an intern or job shadowing, right? We allow AI to prompt us and to help us, but we are here to say yes or no. There is a term, it's RLHF, it's reinforced learning with human feedback. AI can learn. And so if a computer's running slow and you ask AI what to do, maybe AI's first prompt is, well, go ahead and reload the operating system. Okay, that is a solution, may not be the one I go to first. And so when you feed that back into the prompt and say, hey, listen, let's try a little less destructive solution first, it's going to learn that, okay, that is a possible solution, but maybe there's quick fixes ahead of that. So phase three is when we start dialing back the supervision. The idea of that digital labor is to be able to free up some of our time. So we don't want to babysit it all the time. But you'll notice, and the most key part of this slide in phase three is a reduction of time, not an elimination of time. No matter what you do, AI still needs some level of supervision in this type of model. So we need to be careful about taking the guardrails off and allowing AI to just feed through what it thinks is the right solution.
Yeah, we don't want to just let the robots do their thing without human supervision. They need a babysitter, right? So when you're starting this, it can be overwhelming. We mentioned just the vast amount of cleanup, the vast amount of training you have to do, right? How do you prevent that sort of validation fatigue? So as your people are giving that feedback, as they're correcting the AI who's basically learning to crawl before it walks, how do you prevent your team from kind of being burnt out on that process?
So one of the successful things, Amanda, that I've seen with partners that are learning about deploying AI is actually a prompt library. And so this allows prompt structure that we know is going to really get successful results, capturing those and being able to provide those to the users, so our staff, and being able to say, hey, listen, the next time you need to ask this question, what if you structure your prompt this way?
Love that. It's it's really hard. It's a special set of skills you need to start developing. It's kind of in line with that troubleshooting sort of backbone of what we do, but it really has to be drink your own medicine. Really use that fine tuning on yourself as well, right? So
Yeah.
I'm curious. You said you broke it up into three phases, and the
Mhm.
last phase is really about that gentle handoff, that trusting more and more in sort of the robots that you've set up. So when we talk about reduction of time, not elimination of time, how do you start measuring what time people are actually using interacting with AI? How much time they're using to train it? What kind of metrics do you set up to figure out that sort of are you ready for phase three?
Um, to be honest, Amanda, what I've seen as a reasonably successful rollout is less of the time investment and more of the consistent quality and acceptable answer. And so we're looking at it more of, hey, I asked this question with a structured prompt and I'm getting the right answers back 90% of the time. And so if those answers are actionable and they don't need to be iterated on, this is the opportunity for us to start stepping back and letting AI drive the bus, but maybe a little slowly.
All right. And a little bit of a guiding question. Maybe in a single word, who's responsible for starting to validate whether AI is getting it right? Who in the company is responsible for that?
Uh, I would probably say everyone.
I was kind of guiding you there, right? Like, I think it's everyone's job. We all need to be arbiters, guides, help that training because all of us bring unique insights to that, right? I think all of
Absolutely.
our experience can definitely help with that training. Well, thinking about, all right, so we put in some guardrails. We're thinking about how we start getting our data and gear. I think the one of the most powerful parts of your presentation was you put together this sort of framework around all of the things we need to start considering when we think about AI. So I've got a clip here that has you explaining your 5 C's. So let's hop over to that.
For those of you who have not deployed AI, I've tried to summarize this in a fairly concise manner. This is what I have come up with as the 5 C's for deploying AI. So we'll start with confidentiality. I've said it so many times in this presentation, I'm going to keep saying it. AI relies on data. But what if the solution that you've selected leverages a public large language model? What if confidential information like credentials are stored in tickets and you're pointing AI to then be able to ingest that? Do you have the ability to filter where AI looks to be able to start generating those prompts? Is it your own data or is it the entire World Wide Web? Second is compliance. For those of you who are working with partners and clients that may have health, medical, or financial records, have you put guardrails in place to ensure AI is not ingesting that information? It may not be intentional. You may not know that that information is there, but you are still going to be held accountable to getting that information pushed out. Third C is cost. Folks, if you haven't looked at it, AI can be pretty expensive. It really depends on the model you choose. There's a huge price difference between something like Google Gemini or DeepSeek as compared to a more robust model like Anthropic Claude. It also depends on how much data you want it to feed. Do you want 5 years worth of ticket data or do you want 6 months worth of ticket data? Fourth one is capacity. Do you, as the AI engineer inside your organization, have the human hours available to validate the data that you want to feed in? Do you know that that data is accurate or you need to spend time auditing it? And then lastly, do you have the time to validate the outputs and allow AI to learn from the feedback? And then lastly is capability. Do the tools that you're using currently support interfacing and integrating with AI, or do you have to build your own custom integrations? What are you waiting for? Let's try AI. So what I've done is I've built out 3 sample, fully structured prompts that you can all use when you leave the session or leave the conference to be able to start trying what AI might be able to do for your organization. Now, I mentioned about the 5 C's of AI. For those of you who do not have AI models, my recommendation is either Microsoft Copilot or Copilot Chat, which is your free version, and the reason for it is data confidentiality. That's stored and it's safe. It's not leveraging a public AI model, or large language model, sorry. I'm going to encourage you to try at least 6 months worth of ticket data out of your PSA. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to be able to structure the reports, but maybe AI can help you be able to extract that data from your PSA. We're going to try to grab our ticket notes, our time entries, our who did the work, category if you've populated it. And so if we take a look at this first prompt, what client opened the most number of tickets? Is there one particular client who's consuming an unreasonable amount of your engineer's time? Second prompt, summarizing all your tickets and come up with the top 10 list of categories. What is your technical team working on? Are your engineers spending 45 minutes on a password reset? And then the third example prompt, give me a total of all the time that my engineers have entered into my tickets and report on it by month. Does that give you visibility into how busy your engineers are? And are they as busy as you think they are?
Yeah, it's a tough job to balance new capabilities with security, with compliance. Those 5 C's are awesome. I love when you can take really complex things and crunch them down to something that you can memorize. That's my favorite. So I'm going to just start, starting with all the C's. Talk to me about
Okay.
confidentiality. How do we start down our path of making sure our data is secure as well as accurate?
Sure. So one of the things to be really critical about is what AI model or vendor that we're deciding to partner with. And so, yes, there are lots of free versions of AI out there, and it'll take large text chunks. So I could do an export from a PSA, and it may have confidential information in it. Maybe I had a rogue engineer who put a password in, right? Or maybe there's health information or medical or financial information. Using free versions of AI models, those models are designed to learn based on input. Paid versions turn the AI into a non-learning model based on user inputs. And so what that's allowing us to do is to ensure that that data that we're feeding in, guiding the answer, but not staying and becoming part of that public large language model.
Yeah, keeping in those guardrails. Again, we're coming back to that same idea of it's not just set it and forget it. Let's talk about costs. So, different tools have different costs. What are some of the hidden things we need to be thinking about funding? What are the costs that we're not thinking about when we're looking at the shiny new tool that we may need to work into our budget?
Sure. So while there is the AI model itself, there's different ways that you want to interface with it. So there are tools that are available in the MSP channel that leverage OpenAI, Claude, um, Grok, and a lot of those other AI models that are available, but it's a wrapper over top. Makes it easier for people to interact with. And so those may be budget items that you've missed when you're starting to take a look at how much is this going to cost. The other one is by far, and we did mention it in the presentation, is the human capital, right? How much time is it going to take my team to actually research, understand, deploy, and then validate, right? So yes, there is that ultimate goal of being able to save time at the end, but we talk about kind of the quality curve. There's going to be a dip in the amount of time you need to invest to get this thing off the ground, probably to a scale that folks really haven't understood before. This is not your stereotypical system deployment.
Yeah. And that spoke about the curve, right? It's going to be you're going to have to accept a certain amount of failure or a certain amount of
Hmm.
dip because you're making changes. And that kind of goes with any change you make in your organization. You're going to have to expect and not necessarily yank the reins back. It's going to take that investment. So that
Sure.
kind of leads us to the capacity. So
Hmm.
talking about change management, talking about the mental bandwidth of using a new tool, doing new processes, how can we work this into our business without creating any burnout, without having that, resistance to change? How do we build
Sure.
ambassadors out of this instead of frustrated people?
So, what I've seen, honestly, from the partner side is you're going to find the person who really enjoys embracing these new types of initiatives. But it's also critically important that you're getting feedback on where AI could be used from members of the team that may not be involved directly in the rollout process. So, what I say by that is, let's say, for example, finance has a very mundane and repetitive task, and they may not be part of the AI rollout team. Well, there may be an ability for us to empower them and get something like that rolled out, but you need to be able to get that feedback of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, right? And being able to have folks focused on the deployment and then having the folks in the front lines using these agents that have been built start getting that tie-in and that buy-in of, hey, this is really cool. And you start kind of getting that grassroots groundswell of this really is something that can help.
Yeah. And I think having buy-in in the right things, right? Sometimes we all fall victim to that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
I would love to bring this graphic back up the 5 C's while we finish up because I want to hammer home again. If anybody needs this list, it's in the LMS. You can find it. Rob was kind enough to help us make a really great handout that you can share with your teams. But when we're talking about that shiny object syndrome, how do we use this approach to change, this change management process, what we in academy like to call 5 phases? How can that all help couch these changes and control sort of that squirreling down rabbit holes? Any tips
Sure.
there to finish us out?
I think it's important, Amanda, that as you start the project, you're getting a better understanding of scope, right? Where to start. As coaches, we always love to use don't go ahead and try to boil the ocean. And AI definitely has the power to warm the oceans and get it to a boiling point, but start small. Start with something that you can handle with the resources and the funding that you have and push it over the finish line. Then go ahead and and then iterate, right? Let's get that one win under our belt and then let's see where else we can deploy.
Yeah. Build some confidence in the process, prove the value of it, and prevent that change fatigue, right? Like
Yeah.
it's about spreading it out over time, but it's also about maybe doing some big rollouts instead of constant change. It's kind of a
Yeah.
balance, right? I'm wrapping it up here. Anything I missed, Rob? Your session was so full of amazing moments and great wisdom. Anything that I didn't cover that you would love to add in here for our partners at the end?
I would say, Amanda, one thing that I did not cover in the presentation and would love our audience to know is I feel like AI is here to stay. This is not the rolling fad. And so it's important to, while you can be nervous, there are ways to embrace it and start learning more about it and don't be scared of it. So we just have to be
Don't
careful, but there is definitely ways to leverage AI to improve your working environment.
yeah. Make it your brobot, make it your friend, give it good guidance, give it good guardrails, and then reach out to us in Academy if you need any help. That's the big thing. Maybe you'll
Absolutely.
get lucky enough to have Rob as a coach. But thank you so much for coming in today. Again, your
Amanda,
session was amazing, so well received. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much for having me on. Lucky enough to be called back, and would love to help out any other time that you folks want a friendly Canadian on Academy Live.
Careful what you offer. I will definitely take you up on that. Thanks, Rob. Well, next up, we have some more fun times with Keith. He's pitching another fastball with sales pitch. So let's check in with him and see what he's got for us this week.
Play ball. As a baseball fan, I love some of the vintage uniforms that teams wear. I love like the 1980s Houston Astros uniform, the ones that the 1970s Braves wore, and the powder blues from the Montreal Expos. While it's cool to see players today in those throwback uniforms, it's not cool for salespeople to be prospecting like it's in the early 2000s. A lot has changed in sales in the last 20 years. Today, when a prospect has a problem or a need, they no longer wait for a salesperson to call. There's a ton of information available to them. They have colleagues and other people that they know in the industry who can point them in the right direction. They can Google it as well. Old school ways of prospecting are not effective. Finding interest by cold calling or email spamming people, giving them your commercial, rarely works. Let's touch all the bases on how to create interest and get rid of those old school ways and tactics. 1. Build a know, like, and trust relationship. It all starts with getting people to know who you are. Focus on developing a target industry and vertical to develop expertise in. Write articles around the challenges in their industry, not what tools or solutions you provide to them or just technical problems, but real-world business problems their industry faces. 2. Get out from your office. You're not going to grow your business just waiting around for the phone to ring. Get out there and meet people. Going back to that target industry, find associations that your target industry goes to. Go to those networking events for that association. Work with the people that run that association to provide webinars and ask for public speaking opportunities to provide some value to their members. 3. Build your network. Centers of influence. Go meet with other business people you know, other owners or salespeople who are doing business with your ideal client. Have coffee meetings with them. Build relationships with them so that way you can earn referrals. 4. 5-minute introductory meetings. Get these from your clients and your centers of influence, other owners, target industries. Ask them who they know that they can introduce you to. Ask them to vouch for you and to recommend a 5-minute quick chat with you. This is with people that they know that are in your target industry. Have a conversation, not a sales pitch when you get those meetings. The game of prospecting has switched from finding interest to creating curiosity and interest. Find smarter ways of prospecting, and if you don't know how to do this, watch my Results Selling Framework podcast on the Pax8 YouTube channel. Play ball.
Thanks, Keith. Always bringing the magic. I love how you're always able to bring your particular brand of fastball to whatever we're talking about on Academy Live. Thank you again to Rob Hurd, my friend, wonderful human being, even better coach. You are welcome at Academy Live anytime, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Come join us next time. We will be here, always bringing the education, the enablement. And until next time, folks, see ya.